Hello dear students, greetings to all. This is the continuation of chapter 1b, the River Valley Civilizations 2. In the previous class we have discussed the Mesopotamian civilization, its introduction and where it is located, and the religious dominance of Mesopotamian civilizations were discussed in the last class. And today we are going to discuss the 3 points. First of all, the 3 social classes. Secondly, the occupation of Indus Valley civilization. And the next one is the code of law. Hammurabi and his code of law. Hammurabi is a king, and the code of law means the collection of laws arranged in a systematic way. So we will be discussing these 3 points in this class. Let us begin with the first one, the 3 social classes. The Mesopotamian civilization, Mesopotamian society was divided into 3: upper class, middle class, lower class. And the upper class is for the rich and noble royal people, the ruling class. And the middle class was consisted of landlords, merchants, traders, craftsmen and artisans. And the lower class was consisted of slaves and labor class and the tillers of the land. And slavery was there in Mesopotamia, but the slaves were not considered as very harshly, or they were not treated very harshly. They were considered in a polite way. So once again, it is very simple to learn these 3 classes: upper class, middle class and lower class. Upper class is consisted of ruling class and rich people, noble people, etc. And the second class, or the middle class, was consisted of landlords, merchants and traders. And the lower class was slaves and laborers. And one of the considering thing that we have to remember is that the women occupied a high position. They were treated equally, and they could own property, and they also enjoyed great freedom in Mesopotamia. So that means is that there was no discrimination between men and women. That means every man and women were considered equally. That is one of the important things that we have to keep in mind. And secondly, we are going to deal with the occupation. So we have seen that in the Harappan culture, or in the Indus Valley civilization, the people were depending on the river, and they were mostly focused on the agriculture. The same as here also, the Mesopotamia is situated between 2 rivers, Tigris and Euphrates. So as it is between the 2 rivers, the land was very fertile. And so the people, the main occupation of the people were agriculture. So there was the land in Mesopotamia was very fertile, as it was fed by rich soil from the 2 rivers after frequent floods. There were frequent floods, and after the flood, the land became very fertile. And so agriculture was one of the main occupations of the people. And they produced wheat, barley, pulses, vegetables, fruits, etc. And not only that, secondly, the second most occupation was domestication of animals, such as cows, goats, oxen, sheep and asses, etc. And so let us conclude that one. The first foremost important occupation of Mesopotamian people were agriculture. Secondly, the domestication of animal. And then even then there were skilled people like craftsmen, goldsmiths, blacksmiths, weavers, potters, etc. So let us conclude this one. When we look at the occupation of Mesopotamian civilization, the most important occupation was agriculture. Secondly, the domestication of animal, and there were skilled people also like goldsmiths, blacksmiths, potters, and those who are making the weapons. All these skilled works were also there as their occupation. And the next one is the most important part of the Mesopotamian civilization, that is the Hammurabi. Hammurabi was a great king, and he made one code of law. Code of law means a collection of laws arranged in a systematic way. So there were 3 different classes, and he has made a code of law for everyone to obey. And let us see this one. Hammurabi was a great king of the Mesopotamians. He ruled during the period 2067 BC to 2025 BC. One of his greatest achievements was the code of law. Now let us look at the main features of Hammurabi's code of law. First of all, his law or code covered every aspect of life. These laws were 282 in number. So the first point is that there were 282 laws, or there were 282 laws in the code of law, and it covered all the aspects of life, in every aspect of life. So code of law means it is something like the Penal Code of India. We have IPC, Indian Penal Code, something like, so where all the rules, punishments and laws are written there. Likewise, this code of law also is talking about the rules and regulations and punishments, etc. So there were 282 rules in the code of law of Hammurabi. Secondly, the code recognized the division of society into rich men, poor men and slaves, and prescribed different punishments for different classes for the same crime. So as the society is divided into three classes, this code of law also is providing different punishments for the same crime based on the class of people. So that is the second point. And thirdly, the main principle of the code of law was that the strong shall not injure the weak. So the main consideration for the code of law was the strong shall not consider the weak. So we have seen that there were slaves in Mesopotamian civilization, but they haven't considered the slaves very harshly. They considered humanly. So that itself shows in the code of law, the strong shall not injure the weak. And finally, the last point given about the code of law is that the code also contained rules about family life, trading, treatment of workers. So the fourth point is that the code of law also contained the rules about the family life, traders and treatment of workers. So these are the important points about the code of law. So dear students, we haven't looked many things today, just 3 points. First of all, the 3 different classes of Mesopotamian civilization. There were 3 classes: upper class, middle class and lower class. Upper class is for the rich and the ruling class. Middle class is the merchants and landlords, traders, etc. And the lower class was the slaves and tillers of the land and laborers. And the next one is about occupation and craft. And the main occupation was agriculture. Secondly, they had domestication of animals, and there were skilled occupations also. And then we have talked about the code of law. Code of law is written by Hammurabi, a great king, and the first feature is that there were 282 rules or the laws in the code of law. Secondly, it prescribed different punishments for different classes for the same crime. And thirdly, the point is that the main principle is that the strong shall not injure the weak. And finally, it contained the rules about the family life, trading, treatment of works, etc. And one of the most important points that we have to keep in mind is that the women occupied a high position. They could own property. They also enjoyed great freedom. So that means there was no degradation of women. The women were considered equally as men. So dear students, you have to read the chapter, understand the points, underline the important points and learn the chapter. Have a nice day. God bless you all.